Welcome to Performance Juice, where we cover the science of elite performance. I'm your host, Drew Hopper. What if I told you there's a way to accelerate your golf skill development by up to 37% faster than traditional practice? Today, I'm going to reveal a scientific breakthrough in skill acquisition that I accidentally discovered. And it all started with a simple moment on the driving range with my sons. So let me set this up for you and how, I had this aha moment. I have three sons. They all play competitive golf. My oldest son is a scholarship college golfer. We've been doing speed sticks off and on for a little while. Uh, but then we started doing a really strict, what we call like a 90-day study. It ended up being an 87-day study. And part of that was speed sticks training once a week. And so we were very disciplined, very consistent, very regimented about it. And we were tracking our speed week over week, right? As we were doing a whole bunch of other stuff too that kind of help build that speed and that explosiveness. Well, part of speed sticks, and I'll put it up on the screen for you so you can kind of see how the level 1 and the level 2 program flow, is you're doing your normal dominant hand swing, but you're also doing your non-dominant hand. And what I started to notice was when I first started, I had a huge gap between my dominant swing and my non-dominant swing, maybe some 60, 70 miles an hour. Honestly, it was crazy. And I looked really dumb swinging left-handed. Like it was awkward. Well, fast forward several weeks, we're deep into this study protocol, and I noticed that it's starting to get closer and closer and closer to where it's maybe like a 20-mile-an-hour difference, where it started off like a 60-mile-an-hour difference. And actually, I'm feeling very comfortable swinging left-handed. We are at Mansfield National doing a practice round for an upcoming tournament, and I'll put a video up here of my two sons swinging at the same time. And after they did this, I just sort of had this moment where I'm like, huh, my 15-year-old, he's now 15 is left-handed. And I thought, let me try to hit his club. He has full-size adult clubs, so they're essentially the same length as mine. They might be like a half an inch shorter. And I grabbed an iron, and just having never hit a left-handed shot in my entire life, all I've ever done is the swing sticks left-handed stuff up until now. And I wouldn't say it was a 10 out of 10. It wasn't as good as my dominant swing, but the first time I've ever swung left-handed in my life. And I hit it so well that my son, I think somewhat sarcastically said, "Man, Dad, you hit my clubs better than I hit them." Well, at that point, I was like, this is really interesting, because just a couple months ago, I felt really silly swinging left-handed, and now I'm standing on the driving range wondering, I wonder if I could play around left-handed. Like, could I? And so I was really fascinated by this, and I wanted to learn more, and so I started doing research. Well, in parallel to that, I'm an active Jiu-Jitsu athlete and train 5 to 6 days a week. And I was sparring, and I had an injury to my right side that prevented me from doing tech throws on the right side. I'm a 6th-degree black belt in Judo, been doing Judo since I was 12 years old, so a long time. And but Judo is the same as most things. You learn your dominant side, and you sort of develop a throw vocabulary that you can access in a reactionary manner in the moment. But those have been all right-handed throws for me, really. And I might do something on the left side, but it's still a right-handed technique. Well, when I had that injury, I started thinking to myself, I wonder if I can do these left-handed like I'm swinging left-handed. And I was able to do an Uchimata. I'll throw that up on the screen too, so you can see that technique. That's not me, that's just another guy doing the technique, but so you can see what an Uchimata is. And an Ouchigiri, left-sided. Maybe I practiced those when I was like learning them when I was 12, 13, 14 years old, and I did them on both sides, but I've definitely not tried to do that since. Well, it was as if my brain somehow translated the right-handed technique that I had done really hundreds of thousands of repetitions on over my life to the left side. And again, it wasn't what I would call a 10 out of 10 in terms of how it looks or feels on my right side, but I did score. I did take my opponent down. And again, I was like, the Uchimata in particular was so good that that even made a stronger impression upon me because I've been doing that a really long time on the right side and have never made an effort to do on the left side. And then all of a sudden, these skills that I thought were only available on my dominant side are now showing up on my non-dominant side. And more than that, it seems as if I'm able to switch back and forth effortlessly. And even then, techniques that I've done for decades are now presenting themselves much more efficiently during sparring. And so I'm like, there's got to be something to this. What's happening that's allowing this to happen? And so I dug into the science, and I'm excited to share that science with you today because I know it's going to make a positive impact on your rate of skill acquisition. And we know that, golf, if nothing else, is about high level skill acquisition and being able to deploy those skills in a variable setting. Because really in golf, the only thing that remains the same, if you want to have that conversation, is your tee shots that are teed up on a flat tee box. Maybe that's a driver. You have a stock shot you hit with that driver. Okay, that's fine. But then once the ball is in play, every shot, we all know, in golf is not the same as the previous. We rarely, if ever, repeat it. So we need a lot of flexibility in how we deploy our skills. And I'm seeing this in my Judo and Jiu-Jitsu game. I experienced that on the range with my son hitting a left-handed. And by the way, since then, we have a golf simulator. Since then, I've also picked up his clubs a few times while I was practicing and switched it to left-handed and hit a few just again to say, is this something that's real or am I just imagining this? And it is very real. So let's unpack the science together. All right, so I'm going to share the research that explains this incredible process of motor skill acquisition. And put some studies up on the screen here as I walk you through this. The first study is bilateral motor learning enhancement. And let's see here. Carson, 2013. Neural pathways mediating cross-education of motor functions, published in Frontiers of Human Neuroscience. Key findings. Cross-education of motor skills results in performance improvements of 35 to 50% on the untrained limb or side, if you will, through bilateral neural adaptations and interhemispheric transfer of motor learning. What this means, training one side of your body actually improves performance on the untrained side by up to 50%. Well, this is explaining what's happening with the speed sticks and the Judo and Jiu-Jitsu, right? We're seeing this transfer happening because I started training my left side. I've never done that before. Study 2, put that up on the screen for you. Hinder, 2011. Inter and intra limb transfer of concurrent adaptation to opposing dynamic forces. Experimental brain research. The key finding, bilateral training protocols demonstrate a 37% acceleration in motor skill acquisition compared to unilateral training approaches with enhanced neuroplasticity observed in both motor cortices. What this means, this is where our 37% figure comes from. When you train both sides, you learn skills dramatically faster than traditional single-sided training. Study 3, from 2012, popping that up on the screen. I'm going to murder this name. Shmulov? Probably wrong, but it's up there. You can read it yourself. All right, how is a motor skill learned? Change and invariance at the levels of task success and trajectory control, Journal of Neurophysiology. Key finding, slow motion, this is a key because we're going to talk about this in a minute. Slow motion motor rehearsal enhances neural pathway formation by 43% compared to full speed practice, allowing for greater precision in movement pattern, encoding, and error correction. What this means, practicing movement slowly, like mirror training, actually creates stronger, more accurate neural pathways than full speed practice. So this is particularly important because we have deployed that in the past, mirror drills that are, hyper slow motion where you're getting into specific positions as you're going through each of them. So now let's jump into, from the science here, let's jump into the practical implementation and what you can do on your own to bring this to life. All right, practical application. Let's talk through a few methods. Speed sticks, the obvious, right? If you have them or you can afford to buy them, they're about $200 for a set, maybe a little bit less. I actually have a discount code, so if you do end up buying speed sticks, DM me and I'll share that discount code with you. Save you some cash. This is the gold standard, and it's what I personally use. And I think I've already demonstrated, and I'm going to put this up on the screen again for you, that this bilateral training is both effective in increasing your speed potential, which I talk about in other podcasts and we'll revisit in a future podcast. But really, again, this is about that skill acquisition and that fluency. You might be saying, man, I don't have 200 bones to drop on speed sticks. If they're not in your budget, you can actually replicate this yourself with the clubs you have. So I'm fairly certain that we all have wedges, and those wedges would be the heaviest of your clubs, actually. And so speed sticks is broken into heavy, medium, and light. And so if you're not able to do speed sticks, you can just grab a club, grab a wedge. You can experiment with holding them on either end. I would probably use the handle end, but some people different preferences, right? And just do the speed sticks program, but do it with a wedge for the heavy, a mid iron for the medium, and maybe a driver or a wood for the light. And maybe on the driver or the wood, you actually do switch it, because if you switch it, you can actually swing faster that way. So again, that's a very, very simple one to deploy. You already have the clubs. You can see the speed stick program that I've shared with you several times. You can also retrieve that. Just go to Google Images or speedsticks.com. The other one that I'll talk into is, kind of alluded to this in the science, mirror training or mirror drills. If you have a mirror and a body, we all do, this is really cost effective. It costs nothing. And if you think about it, you're basically doing body movements and doing them in slow motion, or you could be holding a club and you're going from position setup to P3, etc. And you're doing that in super slow motion while checking yourself in the mirror. We actually have a mirror behind us in our simulator space so that we can get that visual feedback on our positions, our setup. And so we're doing this sort of intentionally from the perspective of, like called a quality control check. But adding that to the next level would be implementing mirror drills. So you're doing these super slow motion, right? And again, goes back to that third study I shared. Number 4 method could be the Quan rope drill. I've published this on YouTube as well as Instagram. I'll put up a video of me doing this right-handed. You can also do this both sides, right? And it's going to promote that same thing that the speed sticks is, but it's also going to promote your rhythm. And we know how important tempo and rhythm are with regards to golf. And so doing the Quan drill on both your right and Dr. Quan drill on both your right and left side would be fantastic. And we talked about this in previous podcasts. Method 5, visualization. We know that a repetition in your mind is as effective as a repetition with your body with regards to how your brain interprets that and stores that as practice. So you could even be falling asleep and using that time to tap into your subconscious mind with positive programming, words of affirmation. We talk about that in other podcasts, but this is also a great time to visualize yourself hitting shots right and left-handed. Again, your mind interprets that as physical practice. It's the same thing, and so you can incorporate that also into your protocol. And the last thing I would offer is simple body coordination drills. Example, you're standing on one leg, your right leg, with your arms up for balance, no help. And you do that as long as you can until you fatigue out, and then switch sides. Go to your left side, do that same thing. As simple as that sounds, standing on one leg and just switching back and forth, it's actually having that same thing. Now you can take that a step further. You could stand on one leg, pick up a kettlebell, bring it to overhead, and kind of go through a progression. I've got one athlete that does these sort of exercises as part of our overall coaching program, and they switch between one eye open and one eye closed as well, which is a whole other topic that we'll get into on another podcast, while they're standing on one leg, picking up that kettlebell and moving it overhead and then putting it back down, switching sides, closing the other eye, up and down. So body weight coordination drills, bottom line, on method 6. And my key takeaway, before the key takeaway, medical disclaimer, before beginning any new training regimen, especially if you have existing injuries or physical limitations, please consult with a medical professional. Listen to your body and modify exercises as needed for your individual circumstances. Concerned about your safety, y'all. All right, so let's move into key takeaways. Key takeaways, and I'll throw this up on the screen for those of you who are visual learners, for those of you who are auditory learners. Maybe you're listening to this while you're driving to work or driving to the golf course. So, key takeaways here. Bilateral training accelerates learning. Training both sides of your body speeds up skill acquisition up to 37%. Number 2, cross education is real. Improvements on one side transfer to the other side through neural adaptation. Number 3, slow motion practice works. Deliberate slow motion rehearsal builds stronger neural pathways than full speed practice. I would argue that both have their purpose, right, in your approach. And so the speed sticks plus mirror drills at super slow-mo, very, very effective. And number 4, multiple methods. Like I just alluded to, mix and match these, right? You may have a preference on what feels best to you. I would encourage you to try them all. I think sometimes stimulation is enhanced when we provide variety. We see this in the gym too, when you change from a workout you've been doing from 8 weeks, the last 8 to 12 weeks, and then you go to a new one, you get a new level of soreness and a new level of muscle adaptation, right? Because of that. And it's the same thing from a neurological perspective here. Last point here, consistency matters. Regular bilateral practice, even, one session a week like we were doing with speed sticks is enough to provoke a positive response. If you're ambitious and you want to do it more often, or you have the time, energy, or resources to do so, I think more is better to a point. You're going to hit a point of diminishing returns, but if you could just do it once a week, I think you're still going to see a high ROI. So here's the implementation challenge. For the next 30 days, spend at least one session a week doing something like speed sticks plus mirror drills. If you combine those two things for the next 30 days and you benchmark, right? Before this, I was able to swing at 100 miles an hour. And my left side was 70 miles an hour or 60 miles an hour, whatever it may be. And I did this for 30 days, and my right side improved by 5 miles an hour. So now I'm up to 105, and I'm hitting the ball 10 yards further. Super exciting. But really, what's more interesting is that my left side has improved, insert number, a huge amount, which is what I think will end up happening for you. But track it, right? Be mindful about it, be deliberate about it, and be consistent. And I think you're going to see a high ROI. So before we wrap up, I want to thank our sponsor, Hopstar Organic Coffee. Hopstar delivers single origin Ethiopian beans with a proprietary clean roast process. No toxins, just pure clean energy for peak performance. Use code PERFORMANCE10 for 10% off your first order at hopstarcoffee.com. All right, y'all. If you're sticking around still for this wrap up, this very last point, don't forget about our 3K coaching giveaway. I'm going to throw up the information on the screen for you. Remember, that's 2 comprehensive 6-month coaching packages. Maybe it's not for you. Maybe you have a friend who could benefit from this and you share that link with them, right? So it's eliteperformancejuice.com. You'll see at the top in the menu, there's a 3K giveaway. Registration closes October 15th. We'll announce the winner October 18th. And again, we're giving away 2 of these complete 6-month coaching packages, which covers all 4 dimensions: physical, technical, strategic, and mental. So I'd love to see you guys register for that, or your friends or your family members. Until then, start training that non-dominant side. And remember, performance optimization isn't just about working harder. It's also about working smarter. This is Drew Hopper with Performance Juice. Stay elite.